What is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD mode interview where every single week we interview top entrepreneurs and just straight top badasses out there dominating their spaces. These are people choosing to not live a life of mediocrity, but instead to go out there and create big, epic, amazing lives for themselves and for their families. So today, guys, we had a special guest on the show. Someone I'm really excited to have on the show. So she's an entrepreneur herself, a coach, consultant, and really helps actually prep entrepreneurs for what's to come and help them become successful in their spaces. So really stoked and honored to have Katrina Julia on the show. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me, Josh, and super grateful and super excited.
Yeah, no, I'm stoked. You know, again, I know you've got a lot of big things that you're doing today. You're an entrepreneur yourself. You also do a lot of coaching, consulting. But before we jump into that, I'm really intrigued always by our guest journeys that led them to entrepreneurship. So whatever that looks like we're running the clocks to whether it's high school, college, like what led you into the entrepreneurship journey in the first place?
So a couple of things. I like to say I've always been an entrepreneur, and even when I wasn't a full-time entrepreneur, I always had side hustles. So my first side hustle was Girl Scout cookies, like many people are, or many women have been. And there was a specific teddy bear charm that I wanted. And it was like, I have to sell 200 boxes. I don't care what I have to do. I don't care who I have to recruit, but I'm getting that charm. And, you know, mom and dad were on the team, the neighbors were on the team. So that was like my first successful venture, right, of focus and getting what I wanted, but also serving people in the process. And then even through, middle school, even through high school, I was always doing something, whether it was candy sales, whether later in high school, it was helping on all kinds of different committees, all kinds of different organizations. In college, building nonprofits, helping people with a lot of different things, working at a credit union, and even through my corporate career, I always had side hustles. So I was always creating and thinking about serving and value and wealth. And then shifting into being a full-time entrepreneur was a whole different dynamic and a lot of failures that started to slap me in the face, and a lot of grounding and a lot of being shocked with the practical and the reality that it really isn't as easy as I thought it was, because when it's a side hustle, it's completely different than when it's your full-time gig, as you well know.
Yep. So what was going on internally then and when you were in the corporate space? Like in the corporate space, you had a successful corporate job, you got the side hustles going on. And most people would just stay there, right? Like what was going on internally that you knew that you had to get out of that game?
So a couple of things were happening. Actually, one, my dad, so back to like being an entrepreneur, my dad always would tell me growing up, like, you need to go do this on your own, or you need to go do this. I'm like, Dad, let me gather my experience. Let me get there till it's the right time. Then, exactly to your point, it's like, I'm sitting there super comfortable, right? 6-figure job, generating 7, 8 figures, 9 figures for others. But then I started looking around, and I like to call it like my first kind of awakening of, wait a minute. I'm looking at this mom over here that's sacrificing time with her kids because the CEO is telling her this. Or I'm looking at this mom that's flying overseas and her baby, her third child, is over 3 months old. Now, that's their journey. That's okay for them. But I knew, like, that's not okay for me, and I'm not even married yet, and I don't have kids. And you're married, you've got children. And so that started resonating. And then it started like, it was already germinating. And it's so funny that how it happened, because I moved to Atlanta. They moved me here as a Chief Audit Exec. And a year in, we experienced some crazy results. Like, I thought we were going to impact the company's bottom line about $2 to $3 million with a lot of projects I was doing. And the impact actually came in at about 10 million. And, not asking for a promotion, not asking for anything. I had a bi-weekly meeting with the CEO and CFO of the company, and they offered me a promotion to go head the contract management team all around the US and go back to one of the subsidiaries. And old me would have jumped. Yes, 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 I'm so grateful. And I said, yes, I'm very grateful. I said, but let me take the weekend. And I realized, I said, I love Atlanta. Not to say I won't ever move from here, because I also love the beach, but I love it here for a lot of reasons. the exposure I was getting and the vibe of the city. Like I loved so many different things that were happening to me here personally and professionally, every front, spiritually, everything. And then I said no. And the CFO told me, you're the first person ever in the CEO's career to tell him no. And I said, you know what? I needed to do what was best for me. And it wasn't about getting, another $50,000 a year, whereas old me would have jumped at that because of the money. And I realized, money, and for anyone listening, I would really say, money should be kind of, it's granted, we all live off of money, but don't make your decisions solely based on money. And a lot of us get pulled into that realm and stop focusing on the value or the service or the gratitude or the joy of doing something that's priceless and the people you get to connect with that are in that same space. And then fast forward to a couple months later, it was already sitting in my head that I knew the time was coming to be a full-time entrepreneur and an intern that I had. So your legs can come and your direction can come from any direction. Don't ever be closed. An intern that was finishing up her CPA said to me, hey, Katrina, you can teach part-time at Georgia State. And I'm like, I thought I had to have my doctorate. She's no, as long as you have your graduate degree, you can go teach. And then in the meantime, Josh, I got a project on a business plan for a resort out in Arizona that he was building all kinds of super cool things with hydroponics and a horse farm and just all these different cool stuff, geodome. So I'm like, oh my God, I've always loved every industry, every business. I'm like how you talk about self-development. I'm like a sponge on the wall. I want to absorb it all. And so that came up in an IT project. And I said, let me email this professor. He emailed me back within a day, and I had the adjunct within 2 to 3 days. So everything started to fall into play, and I was going on a mission trip, maybe 6 months or in 2 months. I was going in 2 months on a mission trip, and I sat back and I said, okay, all this is aligning. I thought about it, I prayed about it, and I said, let me give my notice. I'm ready. Let me give my notice, and let me give them the option of keeping me for another month after the mission trip, because the right thing to do is to give notice beforehand, right? Or let them let me go within a month. And they chose to let me go within, a month. So many things started happening as soon as I made a decision that it was time.
So we started breaking up just slightly there, but okay. So you've given your notice there. They decide to, you're okay. So you're parted ways there. Because you've had all these other side hustles. How do you decide then what the main venture is going to be? What space did you jump into, and how did you decide that with all these other side hustles that you've had success with? How did you decide on the one to really focus your energy on?
So great question, because that's always been my, I love how focused you are with your podcast and how, Troy set up the schedule, and I'm like, oh my God, I get it, and it's I'll be in the esoteric space, and it's Katrina, come back down, you gotta focus. And so first, I had so much experience within the last 5 years of corporate with so many different consulting teams. Directly within consulting, indirectly emerged, so many different working capital projects, Six Sigma projects, all kinds of, building the direct department. So for me, that was the natural first progression. Was let me start a consulting focused company. It was inclusivity at the time. And let me focus on Chief Audit Exec services, and let me focus on Chief Operating Officer services. So business plans, budgeting, helping with controls, risk management, fraud. So it kind of felt like those two angles at first. But I knew my heart, knew so many things were missing. And it's funny when life happens, because when I started in 2011, I'm super grateful to be off on my own, freedom, right? But at the same time, I'm realizing I immediately started to lose some of the structure and the focus that I had built getting to that point in corporate, right? Then fast forward to 2011, 2012, building, but again, I'm feeling that something's missing. You don't know what. Exactly your point, the past 5 cycles or the past things I've gone through. keep in mind, for years, I had struggled with weight. And the fact that I had all these different interests, and it's funny how life has a way of focusing. Because in 2013, one of my best friends of 20 plus years said to me, hey, I tried Herbalife. Do you want to lose weight? And I said, you know what? Like, I tried everything under the sun. I might as well try Herbalife too. Like, what else am I going to do but lose, right? So I tried it. Never in a million years thought I was going to do an MLM, because years ago in college, I had a really bad experience with an MLM, with a specific team. So I'm not going to say everyone does things differently. Very relaxed. No, we'll talk to you about this. And then people just started coming to me for coaching, for like health coaching. And I'm like, oh my God, I am completely insane. On one side, I've got this consulting business. I'm this like professional like consultant, right? On the other side, I'm posting my before and afters on Facebook, and my business grew 25 times with health coaching, and that year alone.
Wow.
And I'm like, this is insane. And I felt insane, because exactly your point, it's like, I love this, but I love this, but I gotta bring it together, or I gotta leave something off. So I really went through this period. I went to Natalie's event in 2014. So 2013, I lose weight, people start coming to me. Then 2014 is really where the business took off on the coaching side, because I said, you know what, I want to get certified in nutrition. I don't want to just use supplements. I want to provide massive value with teaching people how to have a great relationship with food. I joined Team Edge, competed in my first 2 shows between 2014 into 2015, fell in love with like how it makes you feel, as far as the aspect of your mind so focused. It's a big part of the entrepreneur journey, is just fueling your body for success. And that's when the business took off, and I got certified, and I still was like, okay, what do I do with this? What do I do with this? And that's when I went to Natalie's event in 2015. And I started realizing, as I was combining everything in 2015, wait a minute, everything that I've been through, my entire struggle with, dealing with every health path, struggling to make money. So even though I was a CPA or a CPA, Josh, I suck at managing my own money. And I'm like, I suck at managing my own money, but then I'm a freaking pro at other people which are creating all for them, and that's what the world feels like. And then also with building a brand and like going straight from a side hustle directly into a full-time hustle, because I'm one of the most efficient people I know. And so I realized, wait a minute, there's nothing like that exists out in the space of creating a brand that's a one-stop, so that the future transformation is helping people at one click to stop struggling with every health fad, to stop struggling with making money, and to help them brand all in one.
Yeah, and then when we break it down, I mean, it's so correlated, right? Like, I mean, when you look at, I mean, you can't go out there, at least in my opinion. I mean, we see some people doing it, but I don't know how you go out there and create massive success in business if you aren't focused on your energy management and taking care of your health, right? And they're so correlated, right? So, kind of walk us through that. So you've connected the dots, you put these two, teaching people not just how to go out there and create financial success, but create success in every aspect of your life. Like, how do you bring that together and then start, and then walk us through kind of like what that looks like today?
Absolutely. So what I realized through my own journey, and also through clients and the feedback that I've constantly gotten, was basically realizing that what I was missing for over 15 years, and what many people think, is, trainers or people will just tell people, do this or do that, but they're not really meeting the person where they are. So I start with habit identifiers. So I can really see inside that person's mind and where they are, and started adapting it to where they are, then setting them up for success with a back-end portal with tools to help them, like a nutritional plan, like a meal plan, like a workout plan, like a mindset plan, like a gut check about money. So many different tools, and then your handheld tools, like Herbalife, like your 6-pack meal bags that I literally, these tools that I've used myself and use every single day, for like Plate Joy, a digital recipe service. And I'm constantly looking at and testing different things for success, like in the program aspect, But then I realized, to your point, the side hustle aspect, like, wait a minute, I love travel. And a lot of people struggle with travel and eating healthy. And I've traveled to over 26 countries. So how about if I integrate not just programs with health, wealth, and business, but for people kind of on the ones that want to start with like a 3-day trial to a monthly program, but then retreats and then academies and pulling in influencers that have a massive audience as well to spread the message per angle.
Yeah, so, and one thing that, what I love about what you're doing, and one thing that you brought up is, with the traveling, and I mean, because you get so many entrepreneurs that then, because we see it all the time, right? Somebody goes out there and creates a successful business, but they neglect their health, they neglect their, family, they're on their 4th marriage, they don't know their kids, and they have a tough time keeping it together. And one thing that I hear over and over is an excuse for people not taking care of their health is the travel. Right? So, bringing those all together, what I'm still curious about though is, and we'll go kind of guess deeper into how you do some of these things, but for your own business, going out there and selling this, like, how are you positioning yourself and selling yourself? Are you selling yourself as like a health coach or an entrepreneur coach that, or a life coach? Like, how did you create success at, because I think there's a lot of people that believe in your message, but they don't know how to go out there and successfully sell it as an entrepreneur.
Yes, exactly to your point. And that was another quote unquote fail forward, right? Like I always say, you either win or you learn, or you fail forward. It's when I look back, I realized I had a lot of things too easy for me, Josh, which in a sense was kind of to my own detriment, right? Because, here I am going through this stuff. And yes, I had hardships and different things, but so many things were easy for me. And until I really experienced failure and continued to experience failure is really where, the muscle is built. And through that, exactly to your point, it was like, first, like, okay, what am I doing? I look insane. Then 2, it's like, what is my messaging? And, and I always tell people, and I'm very transparent, it's like my website has gone through like 10 revisions over the last year alone. Because I realized exactly what you're talking about. It's like, who's my demographic? Who am I speaking to? And then how do I translate this to where everyone gets it? So, one of the models that I looked at, because I said, okay, what's a business that's like dominating? And I'm huge on learning across all different industries. What's a business that's dominating and that's taken something super, super complicated and made it super, super simple? And so I started looking at Uber. I started looking at Lyft. I started looking at Airbnb because I said, okay, like Airbnb, the world of trips. So I realized, wait a minute, it's, create a life and a business you love. Like you said, that's the central theme, but it's like, welcome to creation. Welcome to creating transformation in these 3 aspects with these dynamics in programs, retreats, or academies, or with it all. But at the same time, it was like, okay, how do I speak to my target audience? So I had to segment it, and I said, wait a minute. First, I have my my potential clients, right, that might attend and do programs, retreats, or academies, or fundraisers. And I had to segment them as essentially almost like 4 different business units of how do I strategize this, and this, and what am I going to focus on now? What's my primary focus? Then I had to strategize on the ambassadors of who am I speaking to on influencers. And how am I going to get them to fall in love with our concept, right? Because they have massive reach. And then how am I going to get them to grow into a long-term relationship? And then how do I focus on the fundraisers? So that was a lot of last year of stumbling around of what my marketing strategy is going to be. And there was a ton of, I talk about the 6 behaviors of money. I mean, there was a ton of investing. There still is. There's a ton of leverage. There's constant hustle and thinking about how to hustle now to make it easier later and more clear, because we want to get to a point of an app. We want to get to a point of a transformation center, but I've got to work out the kinks. And it was like, how do we make a lot of noise in the market in a short amount of time with a lot of people? So I had to wrap my brain around the leverage component, right? So I said, wait a minute. There's all these, I've just started stumbling around on Instagram. I'm doing fairly well. I've learned a lot in the last year. And all these different social platforms, right? That can suck you out and suck all your time. And I said, I could either be like everyone else and spend all my time trying to be on social media or automate social media, or I could create a collaboration or create collaborations. You can see this on the ambassador page. And this goes back to a lot of my strategy days with working on compensation plans in corporate. And I said, okay, all these amazing influencers are freaking, kicking ass on Instagram, on Twitter, on all this stuff. They're years ahead of like what I've built, right? Because I didn't grow up with social media, in college. I had no clue. But I knew the premise of social media. I knew it's all about connection. It's all about relatability. And it's like, that's what I wanted the brand to stand for. So I looked at bloggers' collaborations. I looked at Instagram collabs. Like I immersed myself in the different softwares that exist out there. And I realized, I said, wait a minute. Most of these brands that are reaching out to influencers are making the fundamental connection mistake and the fundamental relationship building mistake. And what I mean by that, like they've done great on a lot of aspects, obviously on exposure, like Lord & Taylor just had a phenomenal campaign. But on one side, I'm like, they don't connect with them up front. They just send them the parameters. They just tell them what to do, pay them the money. And it's typically a one and done, almost like a one night stand. And it's like, no, I want to get married with the influencers. And I said, what if I create these collaborations for them that are freely based on travel, that they get to come to these retreats. They get to come speak at an influencer weekend and invite their followers and make bonuses on every single result they generate. And I give them creative freedom on the platforms that they share the messages, what they do, and that they tie it into their brand, but that I'm also teaching them how to build a brand. And I'm exposing them to exactly what I created. Like I give them tons of content. We just did our Costa Rica retreat. We're ramping up for Cuba and then a weekend in Atlanta and then Brazil at the end, towards the end of this year. And I give them so much content because, like overgive. I give them fly-by nutrition. I give them six-pack of wealth. I give them billions in our brains, which is actually the topic I opened Natalie's conference with. I mean, the law, the way that works. It's like give enough to enough people. And selfishly, I'm learning like a fly in the wall from all these bloggers, all these influencers. Like, even if you wanted to talk about it, like you were like, hey, like I want to go on one of your retreats and I want to do this and I want to do that, like completely open to it. And then also then from their content, because they've experienced. So everything that I'm creating is about embracing the experience of creating a life and a business you love. It's not about the hardship of, oh my God, this is so hard. Oh my God, this is so complicated. Oh my God, it's January 1st again and I got to go join a gym. No, realize like it took me a year and a half to finally lose the weight. It took me over 5 years to finally get my wealth in order because you didn't create the mess overnight. So embrace the experience and be gentle with yourself and have fun along the way. So because they're sharing authentically, from a place of passion, like Travel Luscious, she just shared an incredible video we shot last 2 weeks ago and a blog, and it literally brought tears to my eyes because I was so nervous doing it. But like the work that she put into it, the effort and the passion, and you could tell like she believes in it. And I'm like beyond blown away to see what she produces after Cuba. Just amazing people I'm getting to meet, like from all different, demographics, all different dimensions, because I realize that every single person can spread this message of creating a life and a business you love to their demographic.
Yeah. So if somebody's watching or listening to this right now, right, and they want to learn more about your retreats and
Yes.
and maybe get in touch with you, start following you. I mean, I don't know, Costa Rica sounds pretty badass, dude. Yeah, right. Get to go out there and learn and grow, and then hang out in Costa Rica. Like what does that look like? Like what's the best place to go learn more about this?
So the best place would be the website. I would say fitlifecreation.com. And then specifically under experiences is where it will lead, and show the dimensions of programs, retreats, and academies. And then to your point, if someone, is specifically interested in a retreat, well, then they would follow, the retreat angle, as a client, Or if someone is an influencer that they've already built a brand or it's already on its way up, well, then they would click, on ambassadors or just shoot an email at info@fitlifecreation.com, and say, hey, I want to talk about this. Like, I have this platform, I have that platform. Like, tell me where I need to apply. Like, I want to talk more about it. Because, I've curated over 300 influencers that I've reached out to since last August.
Yeah. And that, it's, and I'm sure you get this all day long too, but it's, you get inundated with, hey, do you just have 5 minutes? Can I just pick your brain? And it's like, well, dude, you start calculating it down. You're like, well, my time is worth $42 a minute. I can't give you 5 minutes, right? So you've got to think of all these outside of the box ways to develop these relationships, and you've done a brilliant job with that, right? So I think that's so important.
Thank you, Josh. And to your point, exactly what you're hitting on, the time and the leverage. It's like, I know video is a weak spot for me as far as like not having a lot of content out there. So that's one of my big goals for 2017 is building tons of content around, video and YouTube and, webinars or podcasts just like this.
Yep, I love it. So, one thing that I know that you hit on is things people need to prep for. Because almost what I love about Mike, because I'm kind of in the same boat you are in that I love entrepreneurship and I love health and fitness. I used to be morbidly obese, lost over 118 pounds, and so those are the two spaces I'm very heavy in, right? And so are our listeners, right? That's a passion of most of our listeners. But one thing I know that you hit very heavily on is things people need to prep themselves before jumping into entrepreneurship. Because I know it's like the fun, sexy thing. Everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. But I don't know, maybe 0.5% of the population is really, truly has what it takes to be a successful entrepreneur. Kind of walk us through. If somebody's watching this, they're in that space where you were in the corporate world where you knew you wanted to get out. What would you recommend that they do to prep for or discover, hey, is this truly for me?
Yes. So funny because I've had a lot of conversations like that with some bloggers now and some that are straddling that fence, right? So back to your point of people reach up, but you always need to reach down all the time. And everyone, each person, like some of us are great at something and others aren't. Like to me, podcasts are like, oh my God, I'm so scary. Like, how do you set it up? How do you do all of it? So to that point, when I give people advice for that, one thing is look up. So this is like, I'll give several different resources and what I wish I would have done if I was talking to myself back in 2011. On one side, I don't regret anything because I know like it builds you to who you are, but to make it easier for others and simpler because I know most people are not heavy risk takers. The first thing is look up your small business administration in your city. They do free sessions at the SBA for entrepreneurs to basically, like, people like me go volunteer for a couple hours every week and basically serve and give consulting to businesses coming up. And one of the key things I always tell people with that is get at least clear on what you can get clear with in that moment, meaning write it down. Use, whether you write it down with a daily planner, whether you write it down with a 90-day plan, whatever your style is, whether you do a business plan. Live Plan Pro is a phenomenal tool. I use that all the time to keep myself accountable and keep myself on track. And what do I need to revise with the vision? I think it's maybe $15 a month, and they walk you through step by step a business plan. We include this, of course, because I've used them since 2005. Like I've used them for a very long time. They also give samples and templates and all kinds of stuff, like specific by industry. So they've done a phenomenal job of curating so many different things. And also, if you want to even look at benchmarks by industry, they pull in all the SIC, so the standard industry classification codes, or by industry, so you can see like what does this industry typically do, on a gross margin basis. What does this industry typically do on a profitability? So it's like great information to see like how you're doing or how you can do better. So that's another thing I would say is basically plan and prep, then think about funding. So think about what runway you need to pay your bills. The bills do not go away, you guys. The bills are there. They're knocking on your door. So that's like some of the struggles I went through. It's like I jumped in head first, in the esoteric space versus realizing, Katrina, wait a minute. But again, everything serves a purpose, right? You're going to still have these bills, and you're going to have periods of like heavy cash flow, and then you're going to have periods as you're building of low cash flow. So until you stabilize, what are you going to do to fill in the gaps? Are you going to get a side hustle to support your dream hustle? Are you going to get investments, from loans? Are you going to apply to investors? What are you going to do to make sure you have that cushion that you're not, because mindset, everything is mindset. That one minute you're flying high and then the next minute you're crashing. And I can tell you in the beginning, 2-3 years ago, like I would beat myself up and be in that space for like a week or two. Well, you and I know if you're in that space for a week or two, well, that's you vibrationally operating at a super low level and you're not making things happen. Versus now, like something yesterday happened and I literally, I forgot to do something and I just bust out laughing. I was like, the lessons keep on coming, but it just showed me the shift in my attitude. That 2-3 years ago, I would have beat myself up for like 3 weeks versus now I was like, oh, I forgot to do that. No problem. And just, kept it moving because we're human. And I like one of my mentors says, Garrett Jones, he's like, #excuse my human. It's a perfect way to look at it.
Yep. No, I love that. So, you've talked several times about, kind of failing forward and I mean, the word failure, it's so sad because the number one regret on people's deathbed is not living the life they know they wanted to live out of fear of being rejected and let other people down. And it's like the one thing that they fear, which is failure, is the one thing that actually will make them successful. And this world's so backwards with that. Our failures are truly what define us to the people that we are today. What were some of the failures that you had to overcome? Some of the top ones that maybe kind of shocked you a little bit or whatever that you weren't expected for, but that truly defined you to the person that you are today?
So one, I would say just segmenting through everything that's my passion now and that, I'm embracing is going through, before being in corporate America and completely burning out and losing myself in service. The fact that I just gave and gave and gave and never took time for myself. Like how you talked about, people will say, I don't have time. I know exactly what that feels like because I lived through that. So I'm very, I teach people to create space. One day you may be a badass entrepreneur. The next day you're chilling. The next day you're a badass father or you're a badass mother, and that's okay. You don't have to be all things in one day, or create pockets or blocks of time is what I've learned even more effectively. The other big failure was, I thought, I reached, 6 figures, I'm making people these levels. And I thought, okay, great. Because my parents, they immigrated. I was born in Poland. So they really thought, just like a lot of people, go to school, get a degree, you'll escape poverty, right? Like Napoleon Hill talks about that too, like escape poverty. And I realized there was a lot of lessons or a lot of things that I forgot along the way, or like many people in corporate kind of forgot or didn't remember like certain basic lessons of like joy or gratitude or like embracing the life I get to live and so many different things. And so it was very, very humbling, the first year of being an entrepreneur, making $10,000. And that was 10% of what I'd made the prior year. That funny thing, I had started to tithe on a regular basis. And it's almost like our creator was saying, like, look and see what you can live off of. I embraced the whole mantra of stuff, finding your value in stuff. And now I'm like the polar opposite. Up until recently, Josh, I didn't even have a car for 2.5 years. So that's another thing that I would say that like now it's like, I have some stuff again, but you know what? I could give it away tomorrow and not blink. And in fact, I list my car on Turo and people are like, wow, you're not afraid of that? I'm like, that car's not mine. It doesn't belong to me. Somebody could steal it tomorrow. Like I'm not attached to a possession anymore at all. That was a big like defining like freedom. Like realizing that, none of that defines me. People's opinions don't define me. That was another component. Like, you talked about, a lot of times we focus so much on what people think. It's like, whether if you look at, Elon Musk or so many others, they were called Steve Jobs, they were called crazy, but look at them now. And it's like, if you know something in your heart, like go after it with all you are, because there's a reason that it's in your heart. There's a reason you've had the experiences, the obstacles, the passion and the purpose that you have for something. And one of the things I always say is, opinions are like assholes. Everyone has one. And be very, very mindful of who you talk to your dream about and who you share with what they, you share, and like listening to some of the limiting beliefs that come out of people's mouths. It's like, you know what? I'm going to love no matter what, but I'm going to realize like you're sharing this with me. And Oprah said this, people show you who they are in that moment. Believe them. Don't judge them, realize maybe you've been there at one point too. But recognize and realize like you can only at this moment speak to this person at this level. They're not ready to hear like the conversation we're having now. I don't have this kind of conversation with people every day.
Yeah, it is. I love that you brought up the whole, attachment to possessions, and because I don't know if we all go through that, but I definitely have. I mean, I was the guy having to, driving the $100,000 cars and wearing the $10,000 watches, and now going through those experiences. And I felt like I kind of needed to, but like now I realize that didn't create fulfillment, and I've realized in life, or at least me personally, like, until all fulfillment comes within. You can't operate off of an external compass. It's got to be an internal compass to truly be fulfilled. And I was talking with somebody yesterday, and I'm like, when you look at this with everybody chasing perfection and the perfect 10s, and it's like we live in this damn hologram, and it's like none of it's real. So many people are just chasing what isn't real out there, and it's a scary place to be. And no wonder they're so depressed and unfulfilled in this world.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you hit it on the head. It's empty fulfillment when you're focused on the external. When you're focused on the internal and the external comes, it's like, oh, wow, I didn't realize I was going to get this, or I didn't realize this was going to come to me. But it's like a byproduct of the fulfillment you already feel. It's like the icing on the cake, right? Like, I don't like to use cake, but that's a great, it's icing on the protein shake, right? It's like, the foam or the strawberry on top that, wow, I'm already so full. Like my cup is already so full because of the fact that like what we get to do as entrepreneurs, and the fact that you're pursuing your passion and your purpose fully and you're like all in, is priceless. But then getting the other stuff like the money, the cars, whatever, it's a bonus.
Yeah, 100%. So, you talk about time, and so many people complain about time, and like, oh, I don't have time to go on date night with my wife or whatever it may be. And I'm like, okay. But then I'll ask them, like, how many hours in a week? And, like, almost nobody knows that. I'm like, okay, there's 168 hours a week. I can give up 4 of that to take my wife on a date. I can figure out other things to eliminate and whatever. But, you get to a point, like, where you're at, where you're creating massive abundance in your world. And you get a lot of opportunities that are thrown at you, right? And, Steve Jobs, one of his famous quotes, and you brought him up earlier, but it was, I'm more proud of the things that we don't do compared to what we do. And it gets to a point where, like, how do you know what to say yes to and say no to? Because I'm sure you're getting hit and pitched with new things daily. Like, how do you know how to stay focused and not to overextend yourself?
So great point. A couple of things that I implemented again last year when I really reflected, like everyone has points that they've been successful. So I always tell people is go back to that place that you created massive results, and what were you doing? And I realized, wait a minute, I was holding myself accountable with like daily key performance indicators. I was holding myself accountable with a status report every day, with a goals and actions list every day, and like seeing the momentum build, right? So I re-implemented that. And then I got very clear on what I was doing. So I got very clear on, okay, number one, my old focus is, so always look at what you didn't like of your life, right? That's a perfect clue. So my old focuses were stuff. My old focuses were saying yes all the time to everyone because I always wanted people pleaser. I just wanted to give and give and give, and I wanted everyone to love me. And then I realized, people pleaser, but then submitting is 2 very different things. And then I also realized being focused on the external versus the internal. So I got really, really focused on energy and the energy of people. And so I focus on whenever I'm connecting with someone or someone reaches out to me, I go through a filter, and I actually blogged about this after Natalie's event. I blogged about, how to get speaking gigs. And I go through a filter of, what's this person about? What's this organization about? Are they spreading a positive message? Are they generating super valuable, input and super valuable, things in the marketplace, right? Are they someone that I'd like to be friends with? Do they show a lot of gratitude? Do they show a lot of joy? Are they kicking ass in their respective area, or is the trajectory already there? Because success leaves clues. It always does. And money, honestly, doesn't even hit my radar, because I got asked for Natalie's event, right? Oh, did you get paid to be a speaker? Because that looks like such a great event. And I'm like, no. But to me, I looked at service, and I looked at I'm spreading my message, and I'm also spreading something that's super valuable for other people to build their business. And I know that's priceless, and I know that's going to return in other forms. And Natalie, or you're just cool people. And to your point, I also look at when people send me messages, it's how is it positioned? Is it positioned for only what they want? Are they considering that I'm a human with dreams, goals, and passion and purpose on the other end of that email when they're requesting stuff from me? Or even with my influencers. When I reach out to influencers, I look at how they respond. I look at, are they responding with gratitude? Are they responding with joy? Or are they responding with, oh no, I can't attend this retreat because I know I'm going to want to drink every day. Or I can't attend this retreat because, okay, great, you want to give me this collab, but I'm also going to demand another $2,000. You haven't even spoken to me. You know nothing about me, nothing about the company, but at the same time giving grace and releasing judgment because knowing I was there at one point in my life. So it's a really hard place to be and to not react, because I used to be, oh my God, Joshua, I used to be the queen of overreaction. And now, a lot of times when people respond like that, I'm just I'm going to love you no matter what, but I don't even respond.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. So, when you look at coaches, right? Most coaches, I don't know what the statistics are, but very few even get to the point where they can even hit $100,000 a year or even make those six figures. And I get, before I started getting into some of the training space, I think I released 300 and some free YouTube training videos, and built a big list and just gave for 18 months before I even started charging. And at what point? Because I know you got to lead from contribution always first, but at what point? Can you monetize on it? Or if somebody's here right now that wants to get into a training space or a coaching space,
yeah.
What is that balance between? Because at some point you got to make money too.
Of course. And it's so funny that you hit that, because when I first started, everything that Fit Life Creation is about and Transpire, it's focusing on giving back and creating nonprofits. But I had to realize, Katrina, you've got to make more money to give more money and to bless others. So I went through this exact thing last year, and I realized, okay, I'm going to have people that want to jump all in, but then I'm going to have people that want to tiptoe in. And I've got to straddle that from both ends from a monetization standpoint, right? So are you on Natalie's portal? Okay, I was going to say, so this speaks directly to the billions in our brains, presentation too, that basically the first thing is, like you said, creating value and creating, things out there for the know, like, and trust factor, right? So blogs, video, whatever the case may be. But really slicing and dicing your time, and then thinking about, Shailene Johnson's another one of my coaches, that thinking about how do I then automate this, or how do I then outsource this to create more time and to free up time for monetizing. But then also with this is what I tell people, every single piece of free content that you create, strategize and think about how this can go into a monthly program or into a test trial program, whether it's 3 days or 5 days. So the way I work it out, it's okay, let me build content for blogs and videos and social, but then let me integrate this into a portal for a 3-day test, transformation test drive. I literally was just talking to a lady at Macy's, and she's like, I'd love to start the 3-day. So super simple, right? But then goes through like, as far as like the monetization and the relationship depth, it goes into a monthly program. So some people may only live at that level, right? Like 3-day, they may leave, or they may migrate, just like any other sales aspect. They may migrate into the 1 month because now they've test drove it, right? Then it goes into the aspects of digital. So like your digital courses. So like whether you start with a $15 ebook or a $100 ebook, or a $500 video course, right? And listing it on something like Udemy to get some traction, or listing it on your platform and using like tools like lead pages, or using, affiliates, or whatever strategy you want to use, or all of the above. But then realizing some people will want more depth, or their audience wants to be exposed to more depth. So that's where your higher ticket priced items come, like retreats and academies. So like with me, I realized I built out the whole infrastructure first, right? And a lot of people wouldn't do that. A lot of people would build slow and then migrate up. But I built the infrastructure because I needed to see the vision. And then I'm hyper focusing like now with the influencers. And then I'm also hyper focusing on the programs. Because it's like, okay, what am I learning here with the influencers? But let me make sure and go from the bottom up, because I need to meet people with where they are. But as you heard, there's monetization at a test drive level, at a program level, at a, and all of this intertwines with digital, at a retreat level, and then at the academy level, and then intertwining other people's content with your platforms. So like, for example, if you create an academy, don't just create your own academy, pull content from 10 other people. Because I can tell you, Josh, like I went through spending like $20,000 last year on different coaches. Because it's like, wait a minute, I'm only learning this from this coach. I'm only learning this from this coach, but I need this, and this. And that's part of the hardship of being an entrepreneur. So I said, what was part of my pain? Let me alleviate that pain for other people. And that's where I see a lot of the sharing going in the future, because as more people decide to have freedom, they're going to want something easier, like what Shailene created, or Brendan created, and more the how-to, the executional piece. But then imagine that now on steroids with a lot of different people intertwining their content. So someone starting off doesn't have to spend $10,000 or $20,000. They can spend $1,000 and they get access to 10 people.
Yep. Yeah, no, it's awesome. I had Jay Salmon on the show, and he's one of the most brilliant minds. The guy, consults Bill Gates, and he's just like, you have a problem, congratulations, you're halfway to being a billionaire. And like you just talked about, like, all I had to do was solve my own problems, and then once I figured out how to solve my own problems, then boom, now I have something that other people have those same problems.
Yes.
So I love it. So when it comes to coaching and self-development, right? Because you're extremely busy with obviously running all of your different programs and things that you do. How do you have a routine that you go through, or a daily routine? And with that being said, do you incorporate self-development into that routine? Is that something that's daily for you? What does that look like?
Self-development, to your point, is, it's daily. Whether it's music that I need to listen to get myself pumped up, whether it's listening to podcasts like yours, whether it's listening to Brendan Burchard, Shailene Johnson, like whoever I need at that moment. Like if I need something spiritual, it's like, let me find something spiritual that'll really connect with me right now. Brendan Burchard talks about this. He's like, create a self-development plan. Like, what do you need this year? Like what areas do you need to focus on, and like aligning yourself with people in that space. My routine, like it's typically, some kind of physical activity every single day, weightlifting typically, as well as like yesterday. Actually, no, yesterday was a rest day. Day before yesterday, I did an awesome dance class, and I always vary it up. It's like, maybe I need yoga today. Maybe I need dance. Like, let me listen to myself internally, and what do I need? It's not always the super hardcore, because then I'm missing other parts, right? And then it's always time blocking. I will focus and not open my email and not look at my phone for like 2, 3, 4 hours at a shot. And like whatever is going on is whatever is going on. But the work that I'm doing and the work that anyone does requires focus. So, a pilot, you wouldn't expect a pilot to be flying a plane while you're on the plane and texting at the same time. So why do we discount our own value, our own work? It's the exact same thing. And that was a habit I implemented back in corporate, but I lost it for a while when I started to learn social media. And I re-implemented it again, like maybe 5-6 months ago. And the results and the things that have shifted have been massive. It's like, you've got to create the space for success.
Yep. Yeah, I always say I think these smartphones are making us dumb. Right? We get so addicted, and then you don't have time to be with your own thoughts. And it's scary. Most people literally can't go 5 minutes with just being with their own thoughts without checking something. And it's a scary place to be. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, no, I love it. So what do you see yourself? I don't know if you go deep into 5-year visualization, long term. Like, what do you see yourself taking all this amazing stuff that you're doing?
So several things. I mean, you mean as far as taking it directionally, or just goals or results?
Yeah, either way. Whether it's directionally, if you have one direction that you're enjoying more than the other. But yeah, I mean, big picture. Like, what do you see yourself in, let's say, like 20 years?
I mean, big picture, like I bawl like a baby when I think about like different visions and stuff that I have, because all of this is geared, Josh, like when I started doing things here, I started with the fundraising aspect. I started with things ending homelessness. I started with things with battered women because I didn't want to think about the money. I didn't want to think about that. So I went the polar opposite of what I was, right? I have, as far as like taking this into apps, taking this into transformation centers all around the globe, like literally where you can walk into the mall and, be able to, join as a client, as an ambassador, set up fundraisers. As fundraisers, we're partnering with some national fundraising chains. And I have a check on my, literally I have a check on my refrigerator. So, Jim Carrey, all of them have done it. At first, I had it for like a couple $1 billion that was already like blowing my mind. And then I was prompted to like add a zero to it. Like dream big, like go big or go home. And it like terrifies me because I know the person that I am today is not at all who I have to become in order to reach those levels, not of per se like worldly success, but the things that I want, I want to influence the world with, like a collective ripple, effect, a collective shift of awakening, of remembering to think about others first and not ourselves first. And, just the things that, we have so much abundance around us, but you have people, like for Christmas, I went and volunteered. You have people that, don't even have a place to sleep. That don't have, a food, and here we are griping about this bill or that bill. And it's like, and we forget all the blessings that we have around us. And it just, I'm just grateful that, I woke up, right? That I am grateful that I had the opportunity to even think and dream of all these dreams that I had back in college that were awakened when my best friend that we started nonprofits with died of cancer in 2013. That, slapped me in the face, and it was like, wait a minute, who were you in college? Before all this clutter of all this other like stuff influenced your mind. So now there's a check on my refrigerator that says, $20 billion, but not for the sake of, for me, for the sake of pouring it back into people to help end homelessness in a city like Atlanta, and currently doing whatever I can do in those avenues, to help battered women, and so many different things that are not going to happen overnight, and they're not going to happen with one person. It's going to be a massive collective, and it's not going to be easy.
Now, have you always had the ambition for these things, or has it been, all of your travels, these different countries? Because I know, like, when I visit other countries, like, it's always such an eye opener of what we take for granted. Like, even the poorest of the poor in America is like rich compared to a lot of these other countries. Like,
Indeed.
what like got you to that place where you have these passions that you have?
I think a big part of it was my mom, and yes, the travel. Like, my mom was huge on always giving back, and we were always volunteering and doing things growing up, and YMCA, and just church, everything. And then in college, like building the nonprofits, the nonprofit that's still in existence today, and all the stuff I was doing then, just like now, I'm like, I would do this for free. I would do what I do right now every single day for free because it's priceless. And then I just started thinking about, like, I could have been homeless if it wasn't for my parents, or, getting debt or having all these things. Like, this can happen to anyone.
Yep.
I mean, most America lives off 1 to 2, they don't even have but 1 or 2 paychecks in the bank.
Yeah, yep. It's a stat right now, 76% of Americans are paycheck to paycheck, right? I heard a stat the other day too, 65% of 65-year-old plus year olds only have 25,000 retirement. Like it's a scary place, you know? And then you look at like, you know, with entrepreneurs, I'm always like, guys, got to wake up. Like Amazon, for example, shutting down bricks and mortar. Like, where are these retirees that aren't prepped for retirement? Where are they going to go? What are they going to do for jobs? You know, and who's going to take care of them?
We're not trained in school to be an entrepreneur. You're not trained to take care of ourselves. And now with a lot of people that, you know, are growing up with divorced parents, you know, whether they mean to or not, you know, I see a lot of like just over giving, you know, and there's even, you know, just talking about guilt and so many different things that, you know, it's just, I mean, we all know this, every generation's different. You know, they have a lot of pluses, but then they also have a lot of, you know, opportunities.
Yep. Yeah, I love it. So, all right. So knowing what you know now, like if you could go back and give yourself, let's just say like you're getting ready to start college, like your 18-year-old self, knowing what you know now, if you could go back in time and give yourself like 2 pieces of advice to your younger self, like what would that look like?
Number 1 would be stop trying to please everyone. Do what's in your heart and take all the risks that are in your mind. Just do it. Just like a little child that has zero fear and like jumps cannonballs into the unknown. Stop fearing the unknown. Stop fearing, you know, people's opinions, and just, you know, go after it with all that you are inside of you.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love it. So, you know, I started this podcast, you know, just like you're massively into leading from contribution. I started this podcast because I wanted to go out there and give back to the industries that have changed my life, that have helped out, and also in a selfish way that, I mean, I get to pick brilliant minds like yours all day long, and it's a lot of fun, right? So it's in a selfish front as well. But that being said, those that are here, that are watching, that are listening to this right now, I mean, they're here to learn from doers like yourself that are in the trenches, they're out there creating the lives that they truly want. Do you have any last words of advice or inspiration that you'd like to leave them with so they can go out there and create that life that they know they truly deserve?
Really dig into who you are and the passions and the purpose that drives you and what you've overcome and where you want to contribute. And don't let anyone define what that means for you. That freedom is freedom in all forms, and you have the freedom to create the life and the business you love. And don't ever let anyone tell you differently, because that's just a reflection of their mindset and their fears, and it has nothing to do with you.
Yeah, love it. Powerful words. And to those watching and listening, I know I end every podcast with this, you guys, but information without implementation is truly just the start of delusion. Information is not power. It's taking that information, taking action on it, that creates power inside your world. So Katrina shared so many just amazing pieces of advice, whether it's for your business, for life, for health. I mean, covered a lot of ground in this interview, you guys. Take something that you learned today, take massive action on it, implement right away, and then right below is going to be links to Katrina's website to check out her website, check out her programs, check out her retreats. Make sure you take action and check that out right away. And Katrina, it's been a massive honor. I know how busy you are, and I truly appreciate taking time on your busy day to be here.
It's been likewise, Josh. It's been an amazing honor just to connect, and super grateful for what you're doing and all the value you're spreading in the world.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right, you guys, and we will see you next time.